Hey, Dragon Slayers. It's been about 5 hours since my last meal, and my blood sugar is 86. So, for my last meal, I went to this restaurant that I love, Japanese restaurant. I had two sashimi combo orders. They were like 12 or 13 pieces, or no, 14. It's 14 pieces, so 28 pieces of sashimi each. No rice, nothing added to it. A little bit of soy sauce. Absolutely delicious. Had an amazing dinner, and I finished it with about 2.5 tablespoons of ice cream. So today's video is going to be another really dense video, so I'm going to jump right into it. It's all about breaking down energy and explaining how the body uses carbs and fats. So far, we have lumped all carbs and fats together as non protein energy. In a way, this is perfectly fair. Both are simply chains of high energy carbon bonds made by plants as a way to store solar energy as chemical energy. But carbs and fats are radically different and are treated in radically different ways to your body. It is absolutely crucial to understand the basic differences between these two, so let's dive in. First of all, carbohydrates are water soluble. Think of a spoonful of sugar mixed and dissolved into your coffee. Fats, on the other hand, are absolutely not water soluble. Oil and water do not mix. So your body absorbs and transports and stores these two different energy sources in completely different ways. And they have completely different effects in your metabolism. All food is broken down into smaller units in your digestive tract before it's even absorbed into your small intestines. Proteins are broken down into amino acids and building blocks of proteins prior to absorption. Non fiber carbohydrates are all broken down into simple sugars like glucose and fructose before they are absorbed. Fiber carbs are not absorbed at all and continue their way through the digestive tract, exiting out the other side. Dietary fats are eaten as triglycerides, which are three fatty acid packaged together and are broken down into individual fatty acids prior to being absorbed. All non fiber carbs are broken down into simple sugars like glucose and stored as glycogen. All fats are broken down into fatty acids, then stored as triglycerides in fat cells or adipocytes. So all dietary energy is chains of carbons with high energy carbon carbon bonds, carbs and fats. We break apart these bonds in our mitochondria to release energy. So you have two completely separate storage compartments in your body: glucose or carbohydrates, which is water soluble, and it's stored as glycogen, which is chains of glucose, in your liver and your muscles. Fat, which is not water soluble, is stored in your adipocytes. Fat storage is much, much larger, and your body prefers to carry only about 1% of its total energy capacity as glycogen. What gives? It turns out that glucose from glycogen is fast. You can convert glucose into energy 6 times faster compared to fat. So, why don't we use glycogen to store energy? Because glycogen is heavy. Glycogen is fully hydrated. This is why we call them carbohydrates, which means it has a lot of water attached to it, and that water weighs a ton. So, glycogen is about 6 times heavier than the same amount of energy stored as fat. Glycogen, which is just chains of glucose molecules, is sort of human starch and is identical to starch in potatoes. The fat in the lipid droplets of your adipocytes is very similar to olive oil. Glycogen, at 6 times the size and weight, you can see why your body does not want to carry around all of your energy as glycogen. In fact, because of the weight efficiency, your body carries 100 times more fat than glycogen. But you always have to have glycogen around for emergency use. In a fasted state, when we are sedentary or only lightly exercising, like walking, we are burning mostly fat. But at high intensities of exercise, we are burning mostly glucose. And in fact, at the very highest of intensities, like sprinting for your life, you are always burning 100% glucose. This is because it is so helpful for emergency use, your body will always keep glycogen in your muscles, so you can run for your life at a moment's notice. This is an essential safety feature. Glycogen storage is quite tiny. You can only hold about 4 grams of glucose in your bloodstream, maybe around 100 grams or so in your liver of glucose. Your muscles can hold around 300 grams of glucose on average, but the glucose is only for emergency use and remains untouched unless you are doing very intense exercise, in which case you can actually burn a ton of glucose quite rapidly. If you get the intensity all the way up to maximum, this is why people who are doing a ton of super high intensity exercise can pretty much get away with carbs. But the average American who is doing an average of 0 minutes per day of high intensity exercise, so for most of us, we should probably stay under 100 grams. This is the equivalent of about 4 medium sized apples. And there's more about this later to come. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember that together you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.